All right, guys, do you see this? This mat was spread out, laid over all of these vegetables. This is a compost pile. It's not a tall compost pile. It's a flat compost pile. It's more like a vegetable mulch. And the reason I'm showing it to you is because this is a very ingenious way to get fertility over a wide area. And this area was being prepared for a small vegetable garden. And if you can see, we got the starts. You see, we got the starts. And we are going to be planting these vegetables, these starts, into this vegetable mulch. It's essentially garden waste mulch, and it's perfect because where else is she going to get mulch? I mean, there was no other place for her to get mulch, so she created mulch for her garden, and I think it's fantastic because she did not have to have a separate vegetable pile, for a compost. She didn't have to. It is perfect. She created her own mulch through her vegetable waste. And I think it's fantastic. Now we're going to plant these starts and even some seeds into this little garden patch. So how you want to plant a garden is the taller things you want in the back so that they do not cast a shadow on the things in the front. You also want the items that you're not going to be needing access to, blocking the things that you need access to on a regular basis. So I would put, in this case, the peas along the back.
Okay.
Another thing that the peas will do.
Will they climb up?
They will climb
neat.
up this bar for
Oh,
this.
how neat. Yeah.
For this, from the windows
yeah, fantastic.
Here. So they will climb that up.
It's in the house.
So we'll put those in the back, and
right.
then we'll put like the celeries on one side because you're going to be clipping those regularly, right. And then we're going to put the lettuces closer to here along these edges,
right?
Okay, so that you can clip those easily as well. The other seeds that we have, like the onions, we'll put just on the other side of the lettuces. And the carrots, you're not going to be harvesting every day. We're going to put those
toward the back,
close to the, like in the corners. So it's not like one row.
Right.
We'll have like a patch of carrots. And the same thing with the onions, and the leeks.
Right.
Because those you're not going to be harvesting all the time. So the things that you harvest all the time, you want towards the front of your garden.
Which are what?
Always.
Which are what? The lettuces?
The lettuces, the celeries. The broccolis we'll put kind of in a corner, like in the center somewhere, like easy access. Another thing is like the lettuces, you're going to be able to step over.
Right.
All right. Now, there are many ways to build a garden bed. You can do rows. That's what most people are familiar with. That's easy if you're going to be doing hoeing and watering, constant watering. Another way is if you can just scatter the seeds.
Right.
You can just haphazardly put everything goes together. Another way is to do the square inch method where you divide the garden into squares and then you put the plants into those squares, like each type of plant into that square. Now we have an added dimension that we are not allowed to plant different species of plants together. It's called kilayin.
Yes.
We're not allowed to mix them. So we have to have a distance from, let's say, the tip of the middle finger to the wrist between each plant type so that it is not considered kilayin. That's for the base of the plant.
Right.
Now, a plant that's going to naturally spread and root out, for example, onions or celery, we have to make sure that there's plenty of space so that we do not develop key lime afterwards. So they have to have somewhat of a separate space. So I like to plant those in clumps together.
Right.
And then
Makes
make a
sense.
space and then do other things. So the second method I told you where you just haphazard,
Yeah, we can't do it.
we can't do that.
Okay.
Okay, because we observe key lime.
Right.
And it's important for me to say this, you know, to inform you as a gardener, you have to know what that
Right.
habitat is.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's up to you to decide, do you want to do the rows? And if we do the rows, there are two ways to do the rows. We can build up hills and then plant at the top of the hill.
Right.
Or we can build up hills and plant at the bottom of the hill.
Okay.
Usually it depends on what type of soil you have. Your soil will drain nicely. In the summertime, it matters more than in the winter time. It drains nicely, but it's still somewhat clay, and it's not very deep, this
It's
soil.
not very deep. No.
So if we put your vegetables in a gully, it's just going to puddle up and it might rot the roots.
Right.
If it was summertime,
That would be better.
I would say that would be great.
Right.
But in the wintertime,
With the rain.
if you do rows, I would pile up the row and then put the plants at the top of the of the row. I personally like to do the
I was
squares.
saying the square sounds good,
Because it
especially
just-
yeah.
The plants build each other up.
Right. Okay, I think that sounds
And
great.
they shade out the sun, they
Right.
shade out the weeds, and
then you keep them separated as well. More.
and it also helps. It saves a lot of space.
Right.
You'll be amazed at how much you can put into this garden. The rocks are good. You want to keep the rocks. Keep the
them
rocks. No, keep the rocks.
Yes. Where they were?
Yeah.
Right.
Keep them where they were. Rocks collect heat during the day,
Oh, okay.
and then they condensate at night, and it waters
Right.
the ground.
Oh, nice.
You
Okay.
want rocks.
Oh, very good. Okay.
Okay, so you plant around the rocks.
Right. Okay.
So how do you know how deep to plant the seed? The larger the seed, the deeper it is. You plant the seed as deep as it is big. So you have the pea, you put it into the ground just enough to cover the pea.
Okay.
If it's a small seed like these, you'll see they're small seeds. You'll have to rattle the ground, rough it up, sprinkle the seed, and then rough the ground back up again, because they're very, very small seeds.
Right.
So the smaller the seed, the less
Yes,
soil.
sure.
I would do in this case, I would come through here. This is very deep mulch. This is a very deep mulch. So I would remove some of this mulch.
Right. Okay.
Okay? Just remove some of it. Make your square. Okay? Make your square however you want. You have got enough here to make 2 or 3 patches
Okay.
of carrots, and it'll look really nice.
Yeah.
And you've got like all the little carrot ferns. And
Right, so we're
which, by the way, the carrot ferns are edible.
yeah.
You can pick them and eat them, and
Okay, so what's it constitutes a square?
anything you want, any
No,
shape you want, any.
Okay, but is that one patch?
Now the question is, how deep is the soil? Oh yeah, that's great, because carrots need depth.
Yeah.
So I think that's great, just like that.
Okay.
This is a good size, I think.
Yeah.
It's like 12. It's like 10 by 10, 12 by 12.
Okay.
Okay. And now you're gonna rough up the top of the soil. You're gonna
Like this?
Yeah, just like that. That's it. You're done. And now you're gonna pour the seed in your hand. You should always put the seed in your hand so that you can see what the seed looks like, how much you have of it.
All of it?
Put about half, or all of it for now, and then, or half of it, or some of it. You should always put the seed in your hand first.
Yes. Okay. Oh, they're very little. There's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. Okay. Now, with this kind of seed, you're just going to take your other hand and you're going to sprinkle. That's it. Yep. Just sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle.
Any more? Because I don't think I got half.
Oh, by the way, do you see these little weeds?
Yeah.
That's perfect. Those
good.
look like carrots.
Yeah.
Which means that since the leaves are similar or whatever.
We can keep it together.
Well, no, it just shows you that the carrots are going to grow nicely.
Okay.
Oh, look at this little guy. He's helping to make the soil.
Yeah.
Okay, now, what do you do after you've done this?
Spread it back over.
No. Just very gently rake like this with your hands.
Where it is.
Just
not to bring. Oh, not to bring more.
That's it. You're done. You're done.
Okay.
You don't want to cover them too much because they're teeny tiny.
Right.
Okay.
So we heat up and we'll then give condensation.
Exactly. It gives them a drink. Even the rocks underground have a purpose.
Right.
They're helping to provide minerals.
Oh.
And also aeration.
Right. Yes, I can imagine. Those are beets?
Yeah, look at them. Yep, those are beets. And you just spread it about.
Same thing, even though they're bigger?
Yep.
These are actually serious substrate.
Look at that. You were worried about it drying? No, because it was covered and
Wow.
and this is pretty. You had a
This
pretty
is very
thick
thick,
vegetable
very thick.
pile.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's a nice little worm.
Yeah, this is beautiful compost.
Look,
It's beautiful to
lots of
grow
worms.
in.
Oh, lots of worms.
Exactly. This is
And they can be very
the
happy.
worms are breaking down the compost and creating the soil. It's really good.
Okay.
All right, here we go. The garden has been planted. The size, it's about 1.20 meters by just under 2 meters. Not very big, but it's chock full of a lot of stuff. We have peas along the back. We have carrots there and there. We have celery. We have lettuce. We have broccoli, leeks, onion bulbs, beets, green onions, and there's even a little cabbage here. As this garden stands now, it has enough fertility in it to produce all of these vegetables. The owner, however, would like to guarantee a little bit more fertility, so we're going to add compost. But do you see this? The dividers between the vegetables are actually little compost piles. Those will break down and create new soil and provide a lot of fertility for the garden. I'm very excited. This took us about half an hour to do. It's lovely. We're going to add just a smidgen of compost, and then we are going to give it a good soaking of water. Another advantage of piling up the mulch in between the vegetable squares is that the mulch is then creating a bowl, which is going to also help hold in the water. So now that we've sprinkled a layer of compost on, as you can see, it's not too much compost, but it's enough. I would say it's probably about 1/8 of an inch over the top of everything. Now we are going to water it. Wow, look at it from this angle. You can actually see it's a garden. Now the important thing about watering is to try and have it mimic rain as much as possible. So don't come from the side, come from above. And just do enough to saturate it, stop, do a different square, and then come back again. So you don't want to water it all at once on one square. You want to water it, let the water soak in, and while the water's soaking in, you go to the other squares, and then you come back and do it again. I also want to point out that it is important to also water the mulch piles, because watering the mulch piles is essential for the mulch piles to break down into soil. Normally, I would not get the leaves wet. Normally. Currently, there is no sun out, and it's not really cold. I don't have to worry about it freezing. But I do want to clean these leaves off from the dust from when I dusted the compost and from the planting, etc. And I want to make sure that moisture gets down into the stems as much as possible. After this initial watering, I do not recommend getting the leaves wet. I also do not recommend watering in the morning before the sun comes up. This is on the eastern side of the house, and it is really important that the leaves are dry before the sun comes up. If it's rainwater, that's one thing, but this is city water, so it's best to not get the leaves wet when the sun comes up. So when I water at night, after this initial watering, I will go like this very gently, and I will just water in between very gently, and I won't get the leaves wet. I will just water in between each plant. Yes, it'll take a little longer, but it will be very well worth it when you have healthy plants. See? And the same thing for all the leafy vegetables. And when you do water, and if there's water on the plants, you just make sure to shake the leaves so that the water will drip off. So for this, I would just go in the middle like that to water them. Make sure that each one is watered clearly. Now, these onions are laying down. They're in a bit of a shock, but you have to make sure that there's nothing keeping them down, that they're not being held down by leaves, or they're covered by soil, anything that will prevent them from standing back up again. Make sure that they're all clean and free and clear to stand back up. Now, normally, we are worried about the topsoil drying out, because if the topsoil dries out, then the seeds can't germinate. But we don't want to put a layer of mulch that has large pieces, because if we have large pieces, it'll keep also the sun out and will keep things from germinating. So you need to keep the soil moist, and that is easily done by coming out in the late afternoon when the sun is on the other side of the house before it gets too late, and watering the soil. In this season, we're at the end of November, the chances of it drying out so much is not going to be that high. And also, this was good quality soil to begin with. It was good composted soil, so it should hold the moisture just fine. But what I will do for these lettuces, I'm going to take some of this pile and I will create a mulch line for them to help increase the moisture here, because we already know where the plants are. I will do the same thing for the celery. I will do the same thing for the broccoli. Some lovely fennel here in the shade under the tree. It'll grow so beautifully. And then over here, look at this gorgeous garden. It's brand new, this itty bitty baby vegetable garden. And it was such a pleasure to do this with a friend of mine. A wonderful way to spend a Friday afternoon. Until next time.